So the next one is called the CheatBlocker external module. And it's essentially designed to prevent, people, the description of it is that it prevents people from gaming the system or cheating, in your project survey because it tracks duplicates. So we've had some issues with people submitting, they'll hammer us up a survey and submit as many as they can because they can get, gift cards for completing the survey. And we have people that have their projects that automatically sends out information after these people have submitted. We tell people not to have things automated that way, that you should have somebody going into your project and checking to make sure that these people are valid entries and you're not just sending out gift cards to somebody over and over and over again. There's always ways to validate people in your survey, and you can't, sometimes you can't do it on the fly, or you can't do it as they're entering information. You can go back and validate that information later on, and that's what this CheatBlocker does. So I'm going to show you, there's some configurations that you have to make, and you can't just plug and play. You do have to kind of do a little bit of work. So I'm going to show you how to set this up. So like always, we're going to go into external modules. This one's not enabled, so I'm going to enable it. And the first thing that you have to do, what I would recommend, you can do it either way, but it's easier if you have your project built already and then you enable the CheatBlocker, because what happens is the CheatBlocker module will add a data dictionary file. So basically, whatever fields are already in your project, when you enable that CheatBlocker, it grabs those fields and it adds the CheatBlocker fields to it and creates its own CSV file data dictionary for you that you have to replace your data dictionary with. So if you don't have your field set up already and you enable it, then you kind of have to enable it and update the data dictionary and then do your fields afterwards. So it just depends on how you want to do it. I find it easier to have your project built already and then enable the CheatBlocker. So the next thing we're going to do is we have to replace our data dictionary with the CheatBlocker data dictionary. So I'm going to click on this. It's going to ask me if I want to save it. I already have it saved. So I'm going to save it again. And then we have to go to our data dictionary. So you click on the dictionary tab up here, and we want to replace it. What I would recommend is downloading your data dictionary that you have. That way, if you ever need to go back to it, you can. This one's a simple CSV. It only adds the CheatBlocker fields down at the bottom. So if you ever have to revert back to your old data dictionary, you can just delete the CheatBlocker fields, and that's essentially your original data dictionary. So it doesn't do a lot of complex configuration like some other models do. So now I'm going to replace my data dictionary with the CheatBlocker data dictionary. And so now that's all set up, but I want to show you how the dictionaries are different. So let's see, this is the original data dictionary that I had, and there's only 15 fields. And then the CheatBlocker data dictionary, oop, wrong one. It adds these fields down at the bottom. I think there's 7 of them, 8 of them, 7. So that's what the CheatBlocker data dictionary does. It adds these to your data dictionary. So now this is the project data dictionary now. So those fields exist in our project. So let me close that. So now that we have the module enabled and we have the data dictionary uploaded, what they recommend is that you go into your field or your instrument and you mark the fields that you want to check, essentially, mark those as required, because you can't check them. It won't check, or it won't find a duplicate if they're blank. So I'm just going to show you, we're just going to do first name, last name for now. So I'm just going to mark those as required. Now, keep in mind, if you make any changes now that you've updated this, if you download this CheatBlocker data dictionary, it's not going to have those changes. That was created when you enabled the module. So if you downloaded it again and uploaded it, all your changes would be wiped out. So the way you would want to do this is, now that you have these CheatBlocker fields down here, is you would just create a snapshot of your instrument. So that way you have your snapshot of every change that you've made. Because really, this is just to inject those CheatBlocker fields. Once they're there, you don't have to go back to this anymore. All right. So now that we're going to check on the first name and the last name. So now we go into our external modules and we have to do some configuration in the CheatBlocker. So the CheatBlocker doesn't prevent a record from getting submitted. It just tells the person whether or not that value checked out or not. If it found a duplicate, it would tell you that there's a duplicate. And these are the pop-up values that you can put in. And these are just the defaults. So the pop-up title of the box will just say eligibility. If there is no duplicate, then it'll say that it was accepted into the project. If there is a duplicate, basically that you're rejecting this person, you'll say the project is full at this time. These two messages pop up. Well, this message pops up anytime, if it doesn't find any problem. This rejection message only pops up if this automatic duplication check is enabled, because as soon as you're submitting the record, it's checking if there's a duplicate, and it's going to tell you that we found a duplicate. If you uncheck this, and now the CheatBlocker is kind of like, well, I think I have a duplicate, but I didn't, I'm not running at the time of being saved. It's saying that this might be that's where these come in. You may be eligible for the study, we will, you'll be contacted by the administrator. And then this one is that it might be a potential duplicate. Please verify before you edit this record. So you can change these to whatever you want, however you want to, whatever data you want to display. I'm just going to leave them like this for now, so we can see when they pop up. So I'm going to leave the, so let me delete these, because so it saved it from when I was playing with it earlier. So that's what you see there. I'm going to save this as automatic check, and then I'll explain this compare dates by in a little bit. I just want to show you the basic functionality. So now what we're going to do is, it gives you one set of criteria. I'm going to select the first name. I'm going to select the last name. So this is saying, tell me if it's a duplicate if the first name and the last name are identical. So we'll save that. Let me go to let me add a record. So I'm just going to save and go to the next record. Of course, this is the first record, so it's going to say that I've been accepted into the project because there's no duplicates. And actually, I should have saved and stayed, because I want to show you what it does when you save. So now I've saved this record. The CheatBlocker module is adding data to these fields down here. And so it's adding the data entry time, so the time it was saved. So now if I go to the next record, where I create a new record, I'm just going to put myself in again. And now if I save and stay, or let's see, save and go to next record. So now it's saying project is full at this time. So now if I go back to the second project, or sorry, second record, down here you'll see that it saved, it saved the save time, and it's telling me how many duplicates that it counted in this project. And this is the criteria that I set. So it failed on first name and last name, and then it's also giving me the record ID of the duplicate that it found. So if I go back to the record status dashboard and I add another record, I'm persistent. I really want to get into this study, so I'm going to just keep hammering this thing. And for some reason it didn't pop up. I'm not sure why. So let's save it again. There we go. I'm not sure why it does that. It was working fine when I was testing it earlier. But now if we go back to the... So this is the third record, and now it's saying that there's 2 duplicates. It's failed on first and last name, but it's giving me the records for each one of the ones that it found. So as many duplicates as you have, that's how many record IDs you have. Now, let's go back to the... Let's go back to the compare dates. So these 2 fields, what it allows you to do is, like, let's say you have something set up where a person can, they can only enroll like every 6 months. You know, like they're not eligible now, but try again in 6 months. You could set it to where you only want to check within the last 6 months. So if I filled this out last year, it's only going to look back from today to the previous 6 months, and if I'm not in that record set, it's not going to consider me a duplicate. So if I set this, I'm just going to set this for 1 month. And now if I go back to, I'm going to go back to the first one here, and I can update my save time to last year. Now it's going to tell me I'm full at this time. It's going to give me an error because it's going to tell me that my original that wasn't a duplicate is now a duplicate because I saved it and it's comparing it to the other ones. But that doesn't matter. So now I'm going to add a record. And I'm going to put myself back in here. Let me check. So what it should have done is it should have just disregarded this one here because it shouldn't have kept this. So let me save and stay. Yeah, so I want to make sure that this stayed because I was testing this earlier and this is how I did it. So let me go back and add another record. Huh. Oh, that's why it's giving me that error. It's because there's other duplicates. There's other records that I put in. But if you notice, it's not giving me the first record ID. So if I'd cleared all this out and just had the first ID and I tried it again, this wouldn't give me the error, or it wouldn't fill this out essentially. So does that make sense? I don't want to confuse everybody. So let's say I have Terry's trying to enter now. This will make more sense. So now Terry's in the project. He filled it out today, but I'm going to backdate it by a year, and I'm going to save, and it keeps. Just make sure that it doesn't re-update. If it does, well. Let me go back out and back in. Well, It's persistent. It definitely wants to just have it for today. But what I did was I backdated my other record, and as you can see, um, it didn't have the first result. So if I had entered this 6 months ago, it wouldn't consider that as part of a duplicate, if that makes sense. That's really what I'm trying to do. So the interesting thing is you can have as many criteria as you want. So let's say, for example, let me fix this because it always changed back to the date format. So now let's say we want to check not only first name, last name, like Terry Smith might be a very common name, but we also want to check whether or not it's their email address and or the date of birth. So we can have multiple criteria here to give us some options. So now we'll go back down here, and I'm just going to delete this so that we're not worried about this anymore. So now instead of just checking on first name and last name, I want to check on first name, last name, and email address. And then I also want to check on first name, last name, too many plus signs. First name, let me just add both of these here, that way, last name and date of birth. Now you could also just, like, let's say you wanted to do email address. You could just do it on email address. So, you don't have to do like complex, people of course are going to have the same date of birth, so you don't want to just do that by itself, but email address should be unique to a person. So, we could check on email address here, last name, first name, or last name, first name, date of birth. So we'll save this here. And essentially, sorry, let me go back. Essentially what all of these criteria are is you're saying they're and or statements. You're saying I want to check first name and last name, which are, parentheses, they're grouped together, or I want to check first name, last name, and email address together, or I want to check first name, last name, and date of birth together, or I want to check email address. So these are just, criteria that are broken up into or statements. So they'll check all of these. So let's save this and let's go back to add a record. So let's see, we have Terry Smith and then T Smith. And let's say Terry was born today, and we're going to save this. And so now you see here that it's saying that there's a duplicate because we have the first name and the last name. So if we go back to, hold on, let me go back here because we'll just take that simple one out. Let's take this one out, and we'll take the email address out. So now we want to check 3 criteria, but we want to, we're going to make it a little more complex. So now we have Terry added, and we're going to add Terry again. And we'll add, I'll make it tomorrow or yesterday because we already have him in as today. So now if we save it, it's going to say it's a duplicate. It's going to say that it's first name, last name, and email address. So now if we go to add another record, we'll just, we'll enter a random email here so it's not the same. And then we're going to put his birthday as today because we already have one as today. And you'll see here now that it shouldn't have accepted him into the project. It should have Weird. It should have caught him on the birth date and the name. Let me go back to... Yeah. You know, this is the way it always is. It works perfectly fine when I'm doing this by myself, and then when I demo it, it errors out. So let's go back to this.
You know, that's the way it is when anybody's doing it. So I find that it's very helpful, even though it's not working exactly right. It's what you go through to troubleshoot it. So I think it's equally valuable.
Yeah, it's true. You figure out where the holes are.
Right.
Let me make sure my criteria are set right. Yeah, I have data. Oh, you know what? It might be. This is
Go to the next form.
well, so the problem is, and I ran into this earlier, is that with this data dictionary, it's I had to upload the data dictionary again. So this is because I had done the same problem where I changed the date format, but I had done it after I did the CheatBlocker demo. So let me fix this again. So we'll just upload this. It'll be the same. And it was driving me nuts earlier because it was the same sort of thing. It was just something simple. And because I had changed the date type on the date of birth, instead of it being year, day, month, day, I had it as month, day, year, and it was just ignoring it completely for some reason. So let me go back and make these required. I guess, you know, if you don't really have to make them required for the demo, but you would want to do it if you were doing it in a live project. So now if I go back to this, it should there you go. So it's basically because the way the CheatBlocker was set up is it's checking for this value, but the way I changed the date format so it was going the other way, and it's weird because you would think that it would only do that for the first one, but if you already have another record that's got the month, day, and then the year, that it would be checking for that. But so I don't know why that was the way it was. The last thing I want to... So one of the important things is you have to have these fields on all of your check fields have to be on the first instrument of the first event. So you can't have, a couple in like the first instrument and then a couple in the second instrument, or if you have multiple events, they won't check. This code won't run on the second or third or any of the other events. It's got to be on the first event, which makes sense because if you don't want people to get this deep into your surveys if they're, malicious actors or they've been duplicates. You want to kind of flag them right away. And then finally, one of the things that I think is neat with this project, I don't necessarily, I think this might be helpful for people who, want to catch cheaters or people gaming the system. But for me, the way I saw it, what I thought was interesting was this way of being able to capture duplicates and give you the records, because we have so many projects where people are trying to weed out duplicates, and they're trying to flag people who may, this person has the same email address, but I don't know if it's the same person, but they have all these convoluted ways of tracking this information. They have to build all these little reports, show me all your duplicate emails, show me all the duplicate names, show me all your duplicate MRNs, that kind of thing. You could set this up in your project, and then you could have your report just spit that information out automatically. So if I just view a basic report, you can see here that it's giving me all this information. So I can filter on, if whenever you have failed criteria, it's going to put that criteria in there. So I could just say, show me anything that has failed criteria. And I immediately know which record IDs are my duplicates. I don't have to build a report that has, because like, this is how the report would normally look. Like you would have this data basically just, Manuel Snyder 10 times, and you would have to go through and say, okay, just imagine you had thousands of records. They're not going to be neatly lined up like this. I'm not going to be like one right after the other. I might have entered one and then 1,000 records later, there might have been another one. So you're trying to find duplicates just from text fields like this. And that's not very helpful. So what's nice is that you could create a report that just says, give me any failed criteria, or I just want to know, you could even break this out where I just want the first name and last name. You have a report that just checks on that criteria. And, first name and last name and email. I want one that checks on that criteria. And first name, last name, and date of birth. I want one that checks on that criteria. So I feel like this would be a good way to kind of just monitor your data and increase your data quality, because you can flag duplicates pretty easily and see how many duplicates you have. What I like about this is not only does it tell me how many duplicates it's found, but it tells me the IDs for those duplicates. So if I ever have to go back and be like, wait a minute, this looks like a duplicate, but it could have been wrong, I could go in and I could fix it. And as soon as you fix, enter something and save it, it runs the check again. And then, if that wasn't a true duplicate, then it would disappear. For example, if I went back to my first one and changed, now I'm accepted into the project. So if I go back to the report, now that's gone. So, it's a way to kind of adjudicate your data, clean it, and get rid of duplicates, or even, just flagging duplicates and monitoring duplicates. I think it's really nice compared to the old ways we'd had to do convoluted reporting. And, it potentially keeps people from hammering a survey. It does work on surveys, so I haven't enabled this for a survey, but it would be the same thing. Essentially, it just pops up and says, you're either in this or not. And you could change this text to where, nothing pops up for this, or, just record accepted. And then this one you could just have saying, person already exists with this email address, or person already exists, first name, last name already exists, that kind of thing. You could set this however you want, based on whatever criteria you have, you could have these messages pop up. And then the same thing, like with this automatic duplicate check, if you didn't have this, it'll check these, but it doesn't check them live. It'll tell you we think you might already be in the system, but we're going to let you pass anyway. I'm just going to do date of birth here. I'll just leave the email blank. So see this one now, it says it's marked you as a potential duplicate and a potential failed criteria, as opposed to being failed and duplicate down here. But it's telling you, the user who doesn't get to see this information, you may be eligible, you'll be contacted by an administrator. So it gives you some wiggle room. If you don't want to block people outright, and you just want to allow them to enter the data, but you want to flag it, that's how you would do it. You just uncheck the automatic check down here. So, does anybody have any questions about that, or want me to go over anything in more detail?